The Outlanders Journey. Tier 1, Level 2. Chapter 5. Matuk. You should have died many times before. The man with 10 lives, you've been called. You've been trampled by bison, nearly drowned in the Emerald River, sighted by the ancient horror in the north, and impaled through the stomach by a javelin. To have survived for this long while your loved ones have, one by one, fallen. You keep wondering when Grumsh's curse of longevity will finally come to an end. Fire, scorched, blistering pain, the unending wails of agony. You held your daughter in your arms as the webbing spread across her skin, consumed her alive. She screamed into your ears, her body hot to the touch, until she had no more air to hold, and her tears ran dry. "I give you my life," you said over and over like a prayer. You rocked her back and forth as she cried, "I give you my life, I give you my life, I give you my life, I give you my life." The spider plague spread from her face to your fingers, up your arms, across your chest. For a while, you believed you were absorbing the disease into yourself, and she would be well again, and you would finally know the answer to why you remain alive. To save her. But then your skin began to heal, and your rapid heartbeat calmed, and your lungs were no longer on fire. The next day, your tool was dead in your stead. You awaken in Ulfin's arms. He's dragging your body drenched in blood. The inner flesh of his face and neck are fully exposed. His cheek is gone. You smell burning. Everything is burning. A blistering pang shoots through your entire body, and you look down to see your legs are no longer there. As you're dragged away, you leave behind a thick trail of blood. Blackened bodies lay strewn across the floor, unrecognizable. You open your mouth to speak, and you realize you can't hear your own voice. You touch your fingers to your ear, and in its place you feel a sticky lump of flesh, dangling by a strand. It splats to the ground. Your head is ringing. Allure comes into view and, with her brother, pulls you upright. Instantly, everything around you begins to spin. You feel her draping your arm over her shoulder, hoisting you up. Her body is wet and sticky and scalding. Maybe that's coming from you, not her. Before your vision fully goes black, you spot the furbolgs running away towards the mouth of the cave. You're jolted awake again by Ulfin, who nearly trips and drops you. You've moved a few feet, now closer to the waters. You look down to see what caused him to stumble. Before you are the charred remains of Alog and Urim, blasted several feet away from where they were, dangling over the edge. Alog, whom you taught how to wield a bow and arrow when he was a young boy. He asked for your tool's hand in marriage, sat with both of you before she passed away. Your only son, you called him, the last person for whom you would offer your life. You wail his name, though you cannot hear yourself. You writhe out of Ulfin and Allure's hold, and you fall onto the ground. You've gone numb. You drag yourself to Alog, caressing his face, pressing your forehead to his eyes, nose, and lips all eaten away by the fires. Grabbing you by the shoulders, Ulfin pries you off the ground. He screams into your face, pointing to the river. Allure hoists you up by the waist and begins rushing to the waters. You grab onto Alog's head. It tears cleanly off his shoulders. The next thing you know, your body lurches. You're spinning. Arms cradle around your head. You slam hard into the frigid water. Instantly, your entire body freezes up. The air in your lungs forces itself out, and you begin tumbling through the fast-moving rapids. You're sinking. Allure is clutching you tightly. Your hand brushes the bottom of the river, and you realize you've let go of Alog. Allure kicks, and you rise to the surface. Your head bursts out. You gasp for air. Everything is spinning. You're still moving rapidly. You can't feel anything. Then she lets go of you unexpectedly, and she frantically swims away. You spot Ulfin, lying face first on the water, quickly sinking. An arrow is lodged deep into the side of his neck. Allure grabs her brother's face in time. She shakes him desperately. The currents carry you across the exit of the cave, and the blazing sunlight instantly blinds you. You crash into something hard, something sharp. It digs deep into your lower back and snags onto what remains of your clothing. Allure and Ulfin flow past you now. You open your mouth to call for her. There's anguish on her face as she holds her brother. You decide not to shout her name. You have nothing left. You are nothing. This life, the pathetic life of an orc. Why would Grumpsh create you if your only purpose is to witness death? What was the point of everything? Your clothing rips away, and you begin to flow along the river again. You submerge your head into the water. It's murky and, strangely, scattered with glowing speckles like twinkling stars. You've probably lost too much blood now. As your consciousness fades, the last thing you see is another bright ball exploding in the air, almost beautiful like the rising sun. You close your eyes as the heat envelops you. Ikoth. You peel yourself off the ground and immediately cough up blood. Chunks of your flesh slough off and splatter onto the floor. You put your hand to your jaw and you find exposed molars. You have no mouth anymore. You can no longer blink your right eye. The air you breathe passes through where your left cheek should be. And yet, somehow, your mind is clear. Everything around you is moving in slow motion. You can see it all at once. The hunters charging out of the cave, the chaos of the survivors leaping into the water, the strewn corpses. You, standing, capable of walking, should be making use of the body you still have. Your body is a duty, a responsibility. You scan your immediate surroundings, and you lock on to the Aarakocra, the one who came with the traitor. He is holding Morn in his arms. He spots you and waves you over. "Please, help me get her in the river," he shouts. Yes, that's right. You quickly reach the same conclusion. All the women and children must live. That is how your people will survive. You grab her and shove her towards the river, but she immediately protests. "You cannot leave Azuk here," she screams, clawing for one of the clearly dead bodies on the ground. "Please, save him, Ikoth." You shake your head at her, still pushing her along. "You must go in the river," you say. You speak in breathy lisps. Your words whistle between your teeth. She screams into your ear, thrashing about, crying for Azuk. She's not particularly strong. You twist her around at the ledge, staring down into the rapid waters. It's a long drop to the river. "Keep your body together," you say. You fold her arms across her chest. "I push you in 3. "No, no!" She struggles against you, trying to run around you back to her son, but you tighten your hold around her shoulders. 1. It's strange. Either she is weak or your strength has grown tenfold. No longer do your old joints ache. 2. Your muscles respond to you more readily than they have in decades. It's like you're in peak form again. 3. "No!" You shove her in, and she plummets, kicking and screaming. She impacts the water with a loud splash. You watch for movement. Within seconds, her head breaks above the surface, now rushing further downstream. 1 survivor. An arrow pierces your thigh, though it takes you a moment to register it. You pull it out with ease. "No, Laurel! Please don't go! Laurel, please!" You look over to see one of the furbolgs, the lankier one, trying to shove his little sister into the arms of the Aarakocra. He kisses her on the forehead and whispers into her ear. Then he puts his hand over her eyes. She tries to pull his hands off her face to no avail. "I can't swim! Laurel, I can't swim!" "Ark will keep you two afloat, all right? He can fly." He looks at the Aarakocra. "I'll find Errol." "No, Laurel, please!" She squeezes his wrist for dear life, but the Aarakocra grabs her hand and pries her fingers apart, his arm wrapped around her eyes. Should the survivors retreat far enough, the Furbolg children will be able to take them into the forest, as will the Aarakocra. All of them are essential as well. You rush to them, grabbing the Aarakocra and the younger sister. She screams and writhes, shouting Laurel over and over. You and the Aarakocra both drag her towards the river, and with a helping shove, he leaps in. For a moment, he seems to almost glide over the surface, his wings expanded, and you note a deep scar running across the left side. Then he spins around and submerges back first with a splash, holding her tightly in his embrace. 2 more survivors. The other furbolg rushes out of the cave before you're able to grab hold. You chase after him. Your body feels as though it is lifted. Everything is airy and light. As you approach the entrance, the sunlight hits you, blinding the eye that cannot close anymore. Just behind you is the sound of wailing, the familiar voice of Elder Lasha. You glance over your shoulder. She's surrounded by corpses, rocking back and forth, holding her grandson in her arms. She is caressing his head. He has no face, no limbs. "Elder Lasha!" you manage to shout. "Elder Lasha! Can you swim?" She does not answer you. Her clothes are still mostly intact, and she has minimal injuries. She must not have been within the worst of the blast area. You shake her. "Elder Lasha! Leave me," she says. "We have lost." You grip her by the waist and hoist her over your shoulder. She holds her grandson so tightly that he is lifted up as well. His limp body swings over your back. You marvel at how light the 2 of them both seem. "Elder Lasha, please cooperate with me." Your garbled words are barely discernible. Another arrow pierces your side. "Ikath," she says, "why would Grumsh do this to us?" "I lost my faith in Grumsh long ago. My faith lies in your leadership, Elder Lasha. You are still needed. Please." Hearing this, she cries out. You sense her arms release him. Her grandson's body crumples to the ground. Yacha was his name. You remember now. You wonder why you never cared for the other children. You carry her towards the river and lower her to the ground, right before the cliff's edge. You fold her arms over her chest, and you toss her in, feet first. 1 more survivor. 4 in total, you hope. You peer around the cave. Everyone is either dead or has already jumped into the water. The furbolg that slipped away, and there was a 3rd one as well. You must find them. They are crucial. You sprint out of the cave. Stray arrows are still flying past you. You pull the earlier arrow out of your side. The cold air chills your exposed face. Perhaps it is supposed to be painful, but you find it relieving. Brisk weather like this one was always your favorite. You felt the most alive, the most in tune with your senses. Your bare feet graze the dry grass, and your mind awakens to your surroundings. You can sense the vibrations of hundreds moving across the plains. This land is alive. You've lived off its gifts your whole life. When you die here. You scan the horizon. You can't tell how far away anything is anymore. There are numerous elves lined across the land, but you see no orcs. The furbolg that ran from you is nowhere in sight either. An arrow pierces the ground by your feet. You look down and see the elven trader, his body struck with 6 arrows, 1 in his eye and another through his ribcage. His eyes are wide open, blood oozing out of his mouth. He lies atop the backpack he's been carrying with him. The last time he came, he brought you disease and death. He single-handedly murdered your entire family. You have, ever since, fantasized the day in which you find him and one by one, slowly, cut out his eyes, his nose, his ears, his tongue, his fingers. You lulled yourself to sleep each night, imagining the sound of his agonized howling. But now, you feel neither grief nor fury. Before you is the singular mission that you once eschewed, loyalty to your kind. You never expected you, of all people, to feel such clarity of mind. You kneel before him, the symbol of his deity in hand. You sit him up and pull the backpack from his slack shoulders. It must be full of food and supplies. Tainted, perhaps, but if not, the ones who might live will need it. There is no food where the survivors are going. This is, despite everything, better than nothing. You hug the backpack tightly to your chest. To your right is the Emerald River. You must bring it to someone important. Your feet are light. You pace in rhythm with this steady, pulsing drumbeat in your skull. The grasses rustle, brushing against your legs. You are like a child again, though perhaps you are now freer than ever. Something akin to euphoria washes over you. The sky is a vibrant blue, the river its signature glistening green. You taste something sweet in the air. The world is beautiful, you realize. The river isn't far away. An arrow sails towards you, piercing the ground. You peek over your shoulder. A single elf who's separated from the others has spotted you. You're the new prey. You rush to the river. A soft, chilled wind blows back your hair and what remains of your tattered clothing. An arrow punctures your shoulder, and only when you look down do you see the arrowhead pierced through. Another lodges through your right lung. You laugh, hysterically. You're about to die. Life is so funny. You've done nothing meaningful, and it's already over. You sweated and toiled and suffered for every bite of food you could provide yourself and your whole family, and now everyone is dead. You wished each day to disprove their hatred of you, your short-temperedness. Your son who shunned your very existence up until his feverish death. You swore vengeance, even though they loathed you more than they loathed the traitor elf. You are simply a fool. The mist of the roaring water sprays upon your face. Before you register it, your legs give out. You fall face first onto the ground, and the backpack tumbles out of your arms, rolling a few paces ahead. Tiny pebbles gouge into your gums and grind against your bared teeth. One arm at a time, you grab handfuls of the grasses and drag yourself forward. You reach the riverbed. The backpack is stained with your blood, and you've also left a bleeding trail behind. Perhaps it's the only mark you'll leave. You give it one more good shove, and it tumbles into the river. You listen to it splash. It buoys up and down as it crashes and veers rapidly downstream. You extend your arms. The tips of your fingers touch the very edge. You let the water flow between them. The sensation reminds you of those early memories of fishing with your uncle. You were so impatient, pummeling your fists against him when you didn't catch something before he did. He was more forgiving than your father was, and yet you never thanked him even once in your life. Even in your happy days, you somehow tainted it. What you'd give to go back and do it all over. Your lung is filled with blood now. Your vision is going. I will see you all soon, you breathe. Forgive me. Mock. You lunge for your brother. Ernog! You grab hold of his shirt, but he tears himself away, charging forward, axe raised. The metal blade refracts the sunlight, and he cuts down the arrows sailing towards his body. Ernog, wait! The human woman's arms are locked tight across your chest. You jerk and thrash against her, digging your nails into her skin. An explosion bursts out behind you, and in that split second of surprise, you finally break through. Ernog! Horrifying screeches ring out from behind you, not unlike the nightmarish howling you listen to every night during the worst of the spider plague outbreak. You cross through the mouth of the cave, stepping onto the prickly grasses and into the warm sunlight. The world opens itself up to you, the crisp air, sharp in both sensation and taste. This is your territory. But then you look back over your shoulder at the aftermath of the explosion, much like the ones you've heard about before. The stench of burning skin rushes up your nose. You can taste the bitterness, the sense of impending death, here once more. Mock! The human is pursuing you, hands reaching out. Mock, come back! You go down on all fours. Your fingers dig down into the soil, and you take off. You rush up a slight hill, and as you crest over the top, you see hundreds of elves, lined in an endless row, slowly and systematically marching forward, spears pointed ahead. They are still several paces away, but hundreds of arrows sail across the air. There are already dozens of severed bodies twitching on the red-stained ground. You pass Sarod, Fila, and Uzul, all swinging their swords and axes wildly to slice down the onslaught of arrows. You watch as one impales Sarad through the heart. He falls to his knees as his fingers close around the shaft. Rock is barking. From your left, he is bounding towards you, his mouth dripping with blood. He whimpers as he sees you. "Mock!" you still hear. "Ernog!" you scream. You look all around, trying to find a raised axe or the sound of his battle cry. "Rock! Where is he?" In the distance, you spot Dura disarming an elf and impaling him with his own javelin. With 2 weapons in hand, she charges after another and pierces his heart. Then you see a flash of white fur leaping through the air, jaw wide open and teeth bared. Sean bites into another elf's throat, and he gurgles out a scream before going limp. As she lands in the crowd, she lets out a pained, high-pitched whimper. "Ernog! Mock!" The human's cold hands grip your elbow and begin to drag you backward. An arrow zips towards you, and she jerks you away as it grazes her skin instead. "No! No!" You finally hear Ernog's battle cry deep into the formation of elves. Several of them are beginning to gather into a circle, surrounding where you heard his call. You can't see him, but you realize you can smell him, that familiar earthy scent. You drop to your knees, sniffing at the air. You let out this low growl. The hairs on your arms and legs and back raise up and grow thicker, grayer, emerging through your clothing. Your nose elongates, as if to follow your brother's smell, until you realize it is transformed into a canine snout. Claws rupture from your fingers, and they grip onto the soil. You howl out and, with a determined bark, break free of the human's hold once more. You can sense the surprise in her body. There are familiar scents all around you, leaving distinctive trails for you to follow. You can hear Ernog's axe clanging hard against metal. You weave and dip and duck your way to him, and just as an elf spots you, you leap into the fray. The elf points his javelin at you, but it's as though your instincts have been honed. This new form, new body, you're faster than you've ever been. You veer away as the tip just barely brushes your fur. You recognize the fear in the soldier's eyes, and something about that look of fear spurs you on and fills you with deep bloodlust. His flesh. You can tear him in 2. You pounce on top of him, clawing into his chainmail. He screams under your heavy weight, and you sink your teeth into his face, tearing his nose away. Blood spurts everywhere. He writhes beneath you, accidentally exposing his neck, and you clamp your fangs into his throat. His body goes limp. Another elf rushes up to you, cursing. His javelin is raised, but just before he slams the blade down, Rock crashes his body into the man. He screams as Rock claws at his face and tears his arm off. Tilting his head, your animal companion trots towards you and sniffs at you with curiosity. Ernog lets out another battle cry. Your ears perk up, and you catch sight of his bloodied axe, carving through an elf's exposed chest. "Ernog!" you try to say, but you bark instead. You charge after him, both ramming through the soldiers and slipping through tiny openings between bodies. Ernog has managed to break through the front lines, swinging fiercely, his eyes narrowed with a primal focus. He's surrounded by a dozen mangled elven corpses, bleeding out of their throats with split-open torsos. Still, he's badly outnumbered. Several reinforcements are surrounding him, keeping their distance with javelins pointed. You catch a soldier just about to jump in and stab Ernog in the back. You jump up and bite into the elf's jaw, and you tear it cleanly off, slamming him down to the ground. Ernog smashes his axe down, driving the shattered chainmail into the soldier's heart. The stench of blood coats your brother's body. He's breathing heavily. His movements have slowed greatly. There's a deep wound in his side, gushing blood. Nearby, you find Sean's scent is no longer moving. On the ground, you see tufts of white fur, a bloodied paw. Then, finally, Sean's body, split in 2, her innards spilling out, her tongue hanging slack. Rock whimpers behind you. A javelin nearly stabs you in the stomach, but Ernog snaps it in two and shoves the approaching elf back. He roars at the soldier, axe raised. Your brother glances at you as he continues to parry blows. There's confusion on his face. As you bite into another elf's knees, pulling him to the ground, Ernog severs his head from the neck. Your brother looks into your eyes, and there is sudden recognition. Mock? Your heart is pounding out of your chest. You're panting with your tongue sticking out. Just hearing him speak your name causes your tail to wag. In the distance, you hear Ila's voice, cussing as she collapses to the ground. What are you doing here? Ernog shouts. Get out of here! Still chasing after you is the human, her scimitar parrying arrows. Mock! She shouts. She's bleeding profusely out of one eye, her body covered in scrapes. She dives into the fray as the incoming elves begin to close in around all of you. Mock! Ernog grabs you by the scruff of your neck and heaves you towards her. Get him out of here, now! You struggle in his grasp, but he's too strong. The human grabs hold of your fur, and she begins yanking you away with all her might. A javelin pierces into your abdomen, and you howl in pain. The sharp metal paralyzes you, and all at once, your fur and claws and fang recede back into your true body. You can't smell Ernog anymore. You hear Dura's shriek. She barrels through the encroaching line, stabbing her spear into another elf's eye. You hear a second explosion at the river, followed by more agonized screaming in the distance. Steam and embers and brush lift up into the air and blow into your eyes. You blink away the debris, but you keep your gaze on your brother. Mock, you have to go, he cries. Then you have to come with me! There's no time, the human shouts. She grabs you by the collar, tugging you away. Rock bites at your arm, and he begins to haul you away as well. You push and push, digging your heels into the ground. Your clothes are ripping off your body. Ernog! You reach your hands for him. Please! Listen to me, Ernog commands. You must live. He parries an attack from behind, but a spear sinks into his stomach. He stumbles back as Dura steps in and plunges her spear into the elf's face. Mock, you cannot die. You are our future, our survival. If you die, we all die. Do you understand? Ernog, please! Live. I can't do that, you say. Not without you. You must live. With the flat of his axe, he shoves you away. You stagger backward, and with the human and rock's combined strength, you're dragged away. You go too, says Ernog, shoving Dura. Take yourselves to the river. Go! As you're pulled back down the hill, you watch the soldiers finally enclose him and all the remaining orcs. Dura, still parrying spear attacks, mutters something under her breath to Ernog. Then she turns and runs, eyes filled with tears. She grabs you by the waist and hoists you up into her chest. Don't look! She pushes your head deeper into her shoulder. You hear a whistle, followed by a command from one of the elves. The soldiers shout something back and slam their weapons onto the ground in sync. Before your vision is fully blocked, you see Ernog raise his axe in the air one more time. You wail and pound your fists into Dura's chest. The next thing you know, you're thrown into the air. Then you hit cold, fast-moving water. Submerged, your arms flail about, and your fingers comb through Rock's fur. Dura pulls the both of you above the surface, and your eyes are instantly blinded by the sun. Still, you crane your neck, searching all over for Ernog. Rapidly, you're carried farther and farther from the site of the battle. The sound of a horn rings out. The soldiers change formation and organize themselves back into a row-by-row arrangement. They all face the direction of the river. A commanding elf with a silver helm raises his sword. Then, the human finally leaps into the water. As you drift away, you spot Ernog's head, bouncing up and down in the air. For a moment, you think he's chasing after you into the river, but then his head is lifted up high, and cheers erupt from the elves, and you realize it's no longer attached to his body.